All right, Jeff. We've got a few more stories about Gary Barlow for all those, all of his fans out there that might not be interested in the gambling.
Yeah, so anyway, he told me he'd been headhunted by this Manchester modelling agency to put a band together, and they were putting 4 dancers behind him, one of whom, of course, was Robbie Williams. And I think they released 3 singles which all flopped. And I remember telling him to stop wasting his time when he can gig and earn good money around the nightclubs and other venues. And he said the record company said they're going to produce 1 more song, and if that doesn't work, they're going to drop us. And of course, that was It Only Takes a Minute, and that one went, and Take That were on the way. Shows what I knew.
The rest, yeah, but luckily you're a better judge of horses than you are pop stars. So
Apparently.
We'd like to hear about winners. So tell us about a few of your successful gambles.
Well, I've had obviously quite a lot, but there are 3 that I picked out, not because of the price, not because I'm being clever, or not because how much I won, but there was a horse I had with Paul Cole called Maiden Groove, and she wasn't a lot, but she was better than a seller. And so I entered her for a seller in July 2008 at Leicester. And it was only a 5-horse race. And I think she'd be about 10 to 11 in the morning. Second favourite would be about 7 to 4, 2 to 1, trained by Jeremy Gask, the Aussie trainer. And then there were 3 others that was like, name the price. And I thought she was a good thing, but I rang Jeremy Gask up and I said, look, I want to back my filly. I don't know if it's right to ask you, but do you fancy yours? And he said in his Aussie accent, oh, don't worry about mine, mate. She's not been out of a box for a month. So, of course, that would fill your boots time. So I think in those days I lived in Newmarket, and there's 9 betting shops there, and I had a little army that went round every betting shop all morning. By 10:30. Every betting shop had got a sign up saying no more bets on Maiden Groove. So we then jumped in the car and went up to Leicester, and I think she'd be, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 at that time, 4 to 7, but we backed her into 2 to 5, and she won 7 lengths without coming off the bridle. The Jeremy Gask horse was tailed off last and never ran again.
So how come you were in Newmarket? Did you want to be where all the action was?
Not really. I'd split up from my first wife, and we lived in this house, so I'd split up, and I'd already got an apartment in Newmarket, so it was just easy to move there at that time.
Okay, so the next one?
The next one was probably the best horse I had, that ended up winning a Group 1 and a Group 2 race for me. That was in 2017. I had a horse called Unfortunately. And going back to Carl Burke, I was touching on Carl earlier. Pound for pound, Carl buys the best horses of any trainer I've ever dealt with. He paid 24,000 euros for Unfortunately. We sold her for a stupid amount of money, and that would be Carl all over. And I've got other horses exactly the same with him. But I'll go back to Unfortunately. So he won his maiden at Hamilton impressively, and then we decided to run him in a listed race at Maison-Lafitte, where I think he finished 2nd. We then ran him in a condition race at Pontefract, and on my figures, I thought he was a certainty. And I had he wasn't favourite, but I had a huge bet on him. And you wouldn't have wanted to be on anything else in the race right the way through until he hit the front and started stargazing, and a Charlie Appleby horse that was favourite nutted him on the line. From then on, we put him in a visor, different horse altogether. So we then went from there, and so this is a lose and a win. So we then went from there to the Robert Papin, the Group 2 race at Maison-Lafitte. He was 20 to 1 in the morning. My figures told me he got at least £6 in hand that day if you ignored the Pontefract run. So again, and I was still in Newmarket, we backed him right into 10 to 1 and he won that. So that's probably that would be as big a win as I've had. One of the biggest wins I've had for a while. And then the other one that I wanted to tell you about was the horse that won the Air Gold Cup last year. No longer in my ownership. We sold him to Julie Camacho. But as a 2-year-old, he was always a very, very smart horse. Oh, just let me touch back on unfortunately again, because after the pre-Robert Papin, we then entered him in the Group 1 pre-Morney, and it was like, this is not real. Me, as I go back to, I'm from a council house in Barnsley. This is not real, me having a horse in a Group 1 race. So I never had a shilling on him. What I did do, I chartered a light aircraft and flew from Newmarket to Deauville, and I took a couple of pals with me. And I always remember thinking, this is never going to happen again. Just enjoy it. So we went to the top of the stands and still get choked. And he won. And I was like, this is the best day I've ever had. People talk about what's the best day in your life. And obviously I got 2 gorgeous girls, daughters, they're grown up now. But if I'm honest, that's the best day of my life. Anyway, let me take a drink of water because I'm getting a bit hoarse. So going back to significantly, we always thought he was really smart as a 2-year-old. But I think he finished second on his first 4 starts. And it was only when, and if Carl watches this, I'm not trying to steal his thunder, but I actually said to Carl, this horse has got to make the running. And Carl was always against it, but on the day that he said it was okay to make the running, he won at Newcastle. And we knew then the way to ride him. But as a 3-year-old, on his second start, we put him in a conditions race at Hamilton. And he finished second to a horse called Dragon Leader, who went on to win the Commonwealth Cup that year, although disqualified, was first past the post. And part of the conditions of the race said that the handicapper can only reassess the winner. He can't touch any ratings of the others. So the fact that we'd gone second to that horse, which I think went on to win a Group 3 before Ascot, Group 3 or Group 2, the handicapper would have obviously reassessed us and gave us a number, either another £4 or £5. So I said to Carl, we can't run again until Ascot. Then the handicapper has to leave him on the same mark. And that day, it had rained for 24 hours and it looked like Ascot was going to be off. And they inspected the track twice, but the beauty was he wanted it bottomless. I'd been backing him for about 3 weeks at 16-1, and on the day he actually led, and everything was closing. I think he won ahead in the end, but had he have been reassessed, he wouldn't have won. So it was that sort of gave me a great deal of pleasure. Right,
now everybody's heard about your triumphs. You got any one that sticks in mind that didn't go to plan?
Yeah. Well, I told you about the unfortunately one, which stargazing did me. But there was 2 others that come to mind. In fact, I can't even remember the name of the second horse, but I do remember the first one. And that was Maidan Groove, the horse that won the Cellar for me at Leicester that I mentioned. So I entered her for another Cellar at Wolverhampton. It was an evening meeting, and I booked Jamie Spencer. And I told everybody that wanted to listen it would need an act of God to get her beaten. Anyway, she got 2 acts of God. Firstly, Jamie Spencer cried off. I don't think he fancied the trip from Newbury in the afternoon to Wolverhampton at night. So he cried off. The only person available to ride was a guy called Travis Block. And really, hindsight's great, but I should have withdrawn her. But I just thought even he can't get beat on her. And then coming out the stalls, she got a huge bang and lost about 6 lengths. And I think she was beaten ahead in the end. And that was the worst day's punting ever. I think I had 65 grand, if I remember rightly, I did on her.
I was going to say, you talked about bad days and good days. I mean, is that the sort of figures we're talking about?
What, when I lose?
Yeah.
No, that's by far the worst. I just thought she couldn't get beat. It just shows that you can know too much. And the other one, it was only 2 weeks later, and that was also at Wolverhampton. Patsy Cosgrave rode him. I can't even remember the name of the horse, but Patsy Cosgrave rode him, and ended up getting days for overuse of the whip, and he got done a short head. So in 2 weeks, I done about 100 grand, and I said, you just know, you can know too much on your own horses now. I said, that'll be it. And I stopped betting to that level on my own horses.
Now, you mentioned you can know too much, and the story you told earlier on about the trainer, the second in said,
yeah,
you know, this one's been in the box for a week, made yours a potential good thing. I mean, how often as an owner, and obviously you've got quite a few horses, so how often would that sort of gem land in your lap?
Never. It was like finding a winning lottery ticket. Never. That just doesn't happen. You know, I mean, if you do speak to trainers, look, yeah, we've got a chance or whatever. But for him to say it's been stood in its box for a month, kick on.
Now, I'm interested. I want to go back to what you just said a minute ago, about backing your own horses.
Yeah.
Because you'd think, as a professional gambler, the only thing you don't know when you've done all the form is what the other owners do know.
Yeah.
So you'd have thought, looking at it logically, that if you own a horse, you've got that extra bit of edge on top. Now, is it because you've just psychologically told yourself not to do it, or is it a logical thing? Is it good or bad being a professional punter to own horses?
Good question. I think the good side is, yes, you get to know more. You know, the trainer will talk candidly to you. But you tend to look at a race through here, not through here, when you own one. You want your horse to win, so you make every assumption that it can win. I definitely don't think it's a detriment from a punting point of view to not own horses. As much as people think it is. If it's unraced, maybe, but the form's in the book. And I would say you don't have to have horses to. I always thought when I first got in with Jack, having horses and then spreading them far and wide. At one stage, I had 12 horses in training 1 year with, and I think with 8 different trainers. And I thought, oh, I'm sure to find out information. No, I wouldn't say that. I think it confuses you as much as it helps you.
And were you one of these owners that would sort of go down and just give your horse a sugar lump?
I did in the early days. I used to go to the stables on a Sunday, and more so when I was breeding, because I kept them at Franny Lee's. Franny, who's just died, I used to keep him at his yard in Wilmslow, and I would go down on a Sunday there, but from when they're racing, probably not.